What's up, ladies and gentlemen? I am Pat. This is my co-host, Little Jacob, and we are the Fourth Quarter Fanatics. I'm Pat. You can follow me on my socials. First, you can follow the Twitter on Fourth Quarter Fanatics. That's Fourth QTR Fanatics. Just put that Twitter page up. Had a nice little poll on there about our topic of discussion today. And then on my other platforms, I'm known as Selfless_Gaming. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all that stuff there. Little Jacob, go ahead and shout out all your socials, bro.
Yeah, guys, Jacob, of course known as Little Jacob, and most of the same platforms, Twitch, Twitter. I do have a YouTube. I also have a Facebook channel if you prefer to contact on there. Discord. So a couple of different places you can reach me on as well.
Yeah, you guys will probably hear me refer to him as Little Jacob a lot in this because that's what I've known him over the years. But today's topic, we're talking about transgenders and the controversy surrounding transgenders in sports. All right. There's been a lot of things that have occurred over the past couple of years. One thing that I want to say talking about this is I have no issues with how people want to live their lives. People can do whatever they want. I don't really care what you want to do, how you want to do it. That's up to you. Whatever makes you happy at the end of the day is what you deserve. People deserve to be happy. There is some things though, like in our country that we've been fighting for, and especially certain groups have been fighting for, as far as the LGBTQ community. Women have been fighting for equal pay in sports. They're trying to promote their sports and things like that. In the United States, I think we have honestly one of the greatest countries around because no matter what you choose to do and no matter what you try to do in our country, everybody has equal rights. You know, we're trying to make equality exist as much as possible. People are fighting for it every day. So I salute those people who are going out and pushing for, equality in these areas because we're all people at the end of the day living in the same country. No matter how you choose to live your life, we're all people at the end of the day. So the first thing we're going to talk about is some of the controversy that has occurred in transgender sports or evolving around transgenders competing in women's sports. So when we talk about this, we're more referring to transgender women, which are like biological males, now competing into women's athletics. And the reason that we're picking this side of it is because I personally have never heard of a transgender man, like a woman transitioning to be a man, trying to compete in men's sports. And there's been controversy around that. I don't know, have you ever heard of or seen of any articles about that, Little Jacob, women trying to transition and compete into men's sports?
No, not specifically. No, not at all. I mean, you definitely hear now and then if you're like a girl that's playing football in her high school team or maybe even college or competing with the guys. I've heard of that instance, but I can't say personally I've ever heard of a woman transitioning to a man to compete or competing, I should say, in men's sports. So no, I haven't particularly heard that before.
Yeah, I haven't either, but I've actually played with we had a female athlete and stuff on our football team who was actually a really good kicker that kicked for us and stuff. Yeah. I had been a part of a coaching staff where we had a female who wanted to come out and play on the football team and stuff, so we gave them the opportunity to do that. They played 1 year. I think it was their sophomore year, and then their senior year, they decided they didn't want to play anymore. So there's definitely been more situations of that occurring, but I've never known anything of a transgender man, aka woman, trying to transition herself to then go compete in men's sports. Probably one of the most controversial topics is around Riley Gaines. She was a University of Kentucky swimmer. I believe she was ranked number 1 in the world for her event in swimming. Very highly competitive athlete, very high ranking athlete, and was, from my understanding, I don't really follow women's swimming, but very dominant in her sport and her race. There's been some controversy with what had taken place. The athlete last name is Thomas. I think it's Lee Thomas is the athlete's name. This person had competed for, I believe, 3 years on the men's team at the University of Pennsylvania, and then they have transitioned to be a transgender woman, now competing in women's swimming division. And this little clip right here kind of shows and summarizes a little bit. This is Riley Gaines right here. It says swimmer Riley Gaines, trans athletes will destroy women's sports. So here's her perspective on what is going on, because she actually had to compete against this individual.
Hi, my name is Riley Gaines. I'm a recent graduate from the University of Kentucky, where I was on the women's swim team. I proudly finished my career as a 12-time NCAA All-American, a 5-time SEC champion. I am one of the fastest 200 butterflyers of all time. But on March 17th of last year, my teammates and I and other female swimmers from universities around the country were forced to compete against a biological male named Leah Thomas. Thomas was allowed to compete in the women's division after competing as a member of the University of Pennsylvania's men's swim team for 3 years. We watched on the side of the pool as Thomas won a national title in the 500-yard freestyle, beating out the most impressive and accomplished female athletes in the country, including Olympians and American record holders. Whereas just the year before, Thomas at best was ranking in the 400s in the men's category. The next day, Thomas and I raced in the 200 freestyle, which ended up in a tie. We went the exact same time. Hi.
All right, so there is like her concern with this is Leah Thomas, not Lee Thomas. But Leah Thomas, as she said, competed 3 years prior for the University of Pennsylvania on the men's team and didn't even rank in the top 400 within the men's division. Riley I think she said she was like a 12-time national champion or 12-time like collegiate champion of some sort within her career. She had the fastest time ever recorded for a 200-meter butterfly. And Leah Thomas had transitioned over to the women's division, and they had tied for the 200-meter butterfly. So there's been some like concerns that have been brought up with this. As you can also hear, like them seeing this woman come into their sport and all of a sudden start winning national championship after national championship. There's been a lot of like controversy and concerns with that transition. Okay. The one thing that stands out to me with this, and when I say this, and little Jacob, you might be able to help me with this too. I don't know much about the requirements for what is required of athletes who are identifying now as a woman that used to be a biological man to be able to compete in women's sports. Like, I don't know if there's any requirements as far as like testing, medical proof, or anything like that. I do know, like, isn't there some like sports that have certain requirements they're supposed to have documentation for? Do you know of?
I'm not sure 100% with combat sports. I'm pretty sure so one of the sports I do know about is like with football. I think what I was reading up on is that someone has to not only have proof of like testosterone replacement therapy annually or like an annual report, but they also have to have blood work that shows that they do have a testosterone level at the required amount at the required level to compete in the sport and to basically be similar to the other players around them. And part of that reason is because football can be a very violent sport. Um, a lot of it is played with aggression and strength and power, and I
Yeah.
mean a lot of players are very formidable sizes, right? So you can't just let anyone go in there because they could really get hurt. I mean, guys get hurt in the general all the time.
Yeah.
Um, so it's probably something similar for combat sports because again, you know, the size difference of somebody, the strength level, the ability that they have to actually injure somebody, to severely hurt somebody, is something that's strongly considered. Now, other sports that you don't necessarily have those kind of risks. Obviously, not like combat sports or a sport that's as violent as football can be. You know, like say soccer, baseball, basketball. I don't believe there's particularly any kind of restriction that I've ever seen or read or found, was able to find that says that somebody, like if a girl wanted to go play in the MLB, there's nothing that would prevent her from doing that.
Okay.
Or a trans athlete, like there's nothing that would prevent them from being able to do that, even though that's not something that we've ever seen before. But there's nothing that would be able to stop them if they wanted. So yeah, that's really the only instance I can think of where there's like specific rules to somebody being able to compete. Like if somebody wanted to compete in the men's division, even if it was like even if you are a man, you'd still have to be healthy enough and have to this level of like testosterone basically. I'm sure that's not the only requirement, but you know what I mean? You'd have to be on that same kind of playing field, so to speak, on the same spectrum to be able to physically not only perform, but um, be able to endure the potential harm that you're going to have to face while
Yeah,
playing these sports. Because
absolutely.
it's serious, because it's very serious, you know. When you talk about combat sports, when you talk about football, I mean, combat sports like with boxing, you know, people die all the time.
Mhm.
MMA fighters. There was a man, and I can't find the clip, but there was a clip where I guess they were having a debate. I don't know if it was a state, what state it was, but they're having a debate about trans athletes and discussing that and what they should, you know, who should be allowed to play and what. And one of the questions the guy had that I thought was pretty interesting answer, but really didn't make sense to me, was the guy asked, you know, what if Mike Tyson decided that he wanted to identify as a female? Should he be allowed to step in the ring with women?
Yeah.
And the answer to that was, in a short, yes. So
Which is
when I
crazy.
heard that, yeah, and so people have to understand, like, most people know who Mike Tyson is. Um,
He's a stone cold
and,
killer,
and
man. Like,
yeah, like most people know who he is, and then so you have to understand that regardless, let's just say for argument's sake, right? We're going back in time. Mike Tyson's 18 or 20 again. And if you know what he was like at that age, you know what I'm
he's a
talking about.
monster, bro.
Like, let's say, right, even for the argument's sake, that he wanted to identify as a woman, he felt like he is a woman, whatever, the transition, whatever. The fact would still remain that at that time and place in his life, he was still, or they were still, a 215 to 220 pound
Yeah.
um, destroying machine, like of nothing but muscle and power. Now, if you take someone like that and you were to put them into a ring with somebody that's much more vulnerable, that is in no way, shape, or form would be able to have that kind of muscle density, size, and power,
Yeah.
and put them to compete in a combat sport, I mean, that doesn't make any kind of sense to allow something like that to happen, because somebody could get really severely hurt more than they already put themselves at risk to do, and someone could die. Like when
Yeah.
you talk, like the size and strength of Mike Tyson going up against somebody that I can guarantee you, like the size difference would be crazy, regardless of what he does or what they do.
Well, I
But
found.
I think part of that's like, you know, it's a safety issue too. It's not just like, you know, there's certain things that you have to keep in check because of the potential risk for harm to that other person
Yeah.
that you're competing against.
Absolutely.
Because this isn't swimming, you know, someone's going to get hit in the face, and they're going to get hit in the face a lot. And that's just one example. And I know that doesn't apply to all sports, because not all sports you're going to be punching people in the face or getting punched in the face. And
Yeah.
I clearly understand that for sure.
So I actually found that by the NCAA, it's the NCAA Transgender Student Athlete Participation Policy. A trans man who is not taking hormone treatment may compete on a men's or women's team. Okay, so trans man meaning a biological woman transitioning to be a man. And then a trans woman may not compete on a women's team until they complete 1 calendar year of testosterone suppression treatment managed by a student athlete's institution unless medical exception is needed. So basically, a trans woman, aka a biological male, can't compete until they've completed 1 calendar year of testosterone suppression treatment. Now, with that being said, I do see like that they are trying to provide some type of, you know, requirements and regulations of people to meet certain expectations and criteria to compete in this, which is good, because I didn't really know like what was required of this stuff. And some of the things that like you brought up, which I'm glad you brought up, we're going to get into like our next one here when you're talking about combat sports, is another form of controversy, or like a different form of controversy surrounding transgenders and competing in women's sports, is a MMA athlete fighter by the name of Fallon Fox. Okay, if you don't know who Fallon Fox is, Fallon Fox quickly made their name in the MMA world with a storm. They competed in, I think it was like a $20,000 tournament, and the first opponent they fought, they knocked him out in like 15 seconds of the fight. With I believe it was a knee to the head. I'm going to show the clip here and everything. But from my understanding, is a lot of people were like very impressed with what was going on, and this transgender woman had actually fought 2 fights before anybody found out that they used to be a biological male. And then all of a sudden there was tons of controversy with what had been going on within the sport. Their second fight that they had, I believe they actually broke and cracked open the female opponent's like skull. Like they messed him up pretty bad. And then it became a big issue of, okay, like, well, what is required of this? What's going on? And from what I understand, they just had a simple procedure done that allowed them to basically compete in to transgenders or like women's athletics. Okay.
Got you. Okay.
So this is a clip. Here it is. So if y'all don't know who Fallon Fox is, this is Fallon Fox right here. And this person does actually a pretty good breakdown of it. Now, I don't know if that's how they really sound. I feel like the voice is kind of like dubbed to be deeper on purpose, but I could be wrong. That could be how they sound.
2014, after winning a mixed martial arts match against Erica Newsom.
Well, I've been training really hard for this opportunity for a long time.
However, her victory has since sparked controversy over whether transgender athletes should be allowed to compete in sports categorized by gender. Following her victory, critics argued that Fox's physical advantages gave her an unfair advantage over cisgender female opponents.
I'm feeling excellent. That was sweet, huh?
Yeah, I don't know if that's like their real voice. I feel like that could be dubbed a little bit.
And I want to tell everyone else I'm
But I mean,
in this
to the point of, you know, what occurs,
Former
that's,
UFC women's champion.
yeah, I mean, like, that's dangerous, man. I mean, someone can die, you know?
Yeah. And then this is what Ronda Rousey said.
Chop her off, but it's still the same bone structure a man has. It's an advantage. I don't think it's fair. What do you...
So that right there, that's kind of one thing I was like wanting us to like get into now too, is you have some of these athletes who are now speaking out. So like they're like the top tier performer of their division, of their sport, whatever it is. And someone like Ronda Rousey, a lot of people know Ronda Rousey because of her, like what she did in the UFC and how dominant her performance was and everything. Me personally, a lot of people say like Ronda Rousey is like what made female UFC or like female MMA stand out and become like what it is today. I honestly followed like Gina Carano and Cyborg well before Ronda Rousey was even known of, and stuff. So like I've known like some female fighters prior to the success that Ronda Rousey brought to the UFC. Not to diminish anything Ronda Rousey did. She had a tremendous career. She's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. But the fact that she is someone who is speaking out against that this is an issue of trans women competing in women's sports. And I agree with her statement and to what she said. You can go through all the hormones you want. You can cut your penis off and do all those procedures that you want. It doesn't replace the fact that you're still a biological male. And myself, for example, okay, I am 6'4", I am 280 pounds. I am 36 years old now. I've been playing sports my whole entire life. I have competed at a Division I level in football. In college, I have been strength training. I have 2 national championships in powerlifting. My strength, my bone density, my structure is way different than a lot of the female athletes and stuff that I would be going and competing against if I was a transgender woman. Like, you cannot replace, and this is some of the things I have like an issue with the NCAA. I'm glad they're trying to set a criteria for it, but 1 year of like, you know, therapy or showing that like you're meeting a certain criteria and stuff with hormone suppression or hormone increasing, that doesn't replace the previous 35 years of what my body's been and what my body's been trained to do. Like what I've trained my body to do.
And a big part of that too, and we don't have to really go too far into this topic, but a big part of that too is also just genetics. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many things about yourself, yes, that you can change, but genetic makeup, DNA, there's a lot of things you just can't. Like for example, me, I'm only 5'3", I'm only 5'4", like that's just my genetics. I don't have the genetics to be taller, regardless of what I do. I can work out as hard as I want all the time, but I'm not gonna look like Patrick here. I'm not gonna look like you're not gonna
Bro,
look
I
like
want to
any
look like
specific
you,
person.
honestly.
Well, you know what I mean though. Like,
no, I know what you mean.
your genetics are your genetics, and it's some people have better ones than others.
Mhm.
Some people can grow huge calf muscles. I freaking can't, no matter how hard I work them. It's just how it is. And so to kind of tie that back into is like what he's saying. Even if Pat here at a young age decided that he wanted to transition to a woman or whatever and did that, I mean, he'd still be the size that he is right now. I mean, he'd still be as strong and as big as he is right now. There would be nothing that would change that. And I think that's kind of the point that we're trying to get to. I think the main thing is, right, the main thing is with sports that I just like to point out that what we're really trying to get at is that the great thing about sports and what makes sports special is that everybody, and I mean everybody, should have the opportunity to be able to compete.
Yes.
And we'll get more to that part here in a bit as well. Everybody should have the opportunity to compete, but at the same time, another thing with sports is about being able to compete and fairness on a fair playing level for everyone. The game should be fair. Basically, the game should be fair for everyone. You should have an equal opportunity, just like someone else does, to win or to compete. And I mean, hey, look, I don't care how you dress up selfless here. You put this man in there in a powerlifting competition with any level in females powerlifting competition or something like that, they're not gonna outlift this guy. Like, it's just
I
not
mean,
gonna happen.
I'm not gonna I'm not trying to be disrespectful when I say this, but like,
no, not at all.
Seeing some of when I used to compete in powerlifting and I was like training, like serious hardcore training all the time, a lot of the meets and stuff that I went to, there was several things that like I saw from a female competitor perspective where it's like, wow, like that's very impressive. But there were several meets and several events where my wife, I'll give you guys a little bit of a background. Like, I have my master's in wellness promotion and exercise physiology. My undergraduate is health promotion and health physical education. So I have like several degrees. My wife is an exercise science, exercise physiologist, and she has her master's in health promotion and like community health, I believe. But my wife is a fitness nut. She works out all the time. She's a personal trainer, instructor, got a license in massage therapy. There at that point, when we were going to these competitions, I literally like told my wife, I was like, honey, I was like, you could honestly go and compete in these and probably win them. And she doesn't train as a powerlifter. Like, my wife is insanely strong. Genetically, she's been given like the ability to be insanely strong. But if, say, my wife was to go and win a lot of these events, me and her, when we work out together, it is a vast difference, and I'm not like demoralizing or diminishing any of these accomplishments, people, but it's like I could take half of my training and still be very successful and destroy like a lot of female records in their divisions. And honestly, I'm all about equality and fairness, but it really is something that is kind of a double-edged sword. You're trying to promote fairness, but then you're having these men who were competing in men's sports previously and not having any success now transition over to female sports, where females have been working their asses off to build the brands of their sports, to get their sports recognized as much as the male sports have been, who have been busting their ass their whole life to get to a point and be recognized for their success and hard work, to just have someone transition over who's not successful in their own division, now all of a sudden taking national championships after national championships.
Yeah,
Like,
that's definitely demoralizing for a person, you know. And I want everyone to know that whenever we're kind of speaking like in comparison, it's not comparison necessarily to us. You know, I know I'm not the strongest guy, and I know for a fact there's plenty of women out there that are stronger than me. I've seen it. But when we're talking about it from the perspective or the viewpoint of an actual athlete who has been training for this all their life, they are at their full potential as an athlete, as a human being, however you want to look at it. Um, at the fullest potential of training and all that, you know, when you put those two side to side, there is a pretty huge skill difference in different areas of attributes when we talk about this person that's been training for their whole life and this person that's been training for their whole life, same sport, but there's a complete different like bridge there that's got. And I get it, you know, we with the trying to make things like you said, it's a double-edged sword. You're trying to make it fair because you want everybody to be able to play, but at the same time we're losing sight of where that gap is, and I guess we're trying to bridge it right now. But there's that gap that's still there, that's hard to you can't really get over some of that stuff, you know, because it is what it is. It's nothing to change it. I can't change the fact that Pat O'Leary is as tall as he is and weighs as much as he does, and is a machine. You know, he could be a machine at his fullest potential.
yeah.
No one can change that.
Well, and like it's a thing too where, like me personally, I feel like the most that I've heard about women's sports growing up, okay, is our U.S. Olympic women's soccer team. They are dominant in that sport. They have won World Cup after World Cup, like world championships multiple times. They are well known to be the pedigree of what you want to be in that sport. They have dominated for a long time. A lot of other like women's sports, I've known of women athletes such as like Serena Williams, for example. She's one of the most decorated athletes on the planet with how many Grand Slams and Wimbledon championships and things that she's won. Okay. But when you talk about like actual women's sports, here as of recent, the past couple of years, this is the most I've heard spoken about women's sports, and the most things that it's always about is controversy. And to me, it's like they are trying, I feel so bad for them because they're trying to build their brand of sports to be recognized among the men's sports and stuff and the media and everything else. And the men's sports, it's, you hear about NFL updates, NBA, MLB, NHL, all this stuff being discussed, and superstars here, superstars there, what's going on with coaches. But then it's like, we transition over to female sports. Oh, there's controversy with this transgender woman now competing in swimming. This is what's been taking place. You know, these athletes are speaking out against it. And that's not really like fair to them because it seems like that's the only way their sports are being marketed now is around controversy, you know? And for me, being like a sports fan and a previous coach, a previous athlete, I really feel for that because you try to do what you can to like represent your sport the best you can. And then it's like the only time your sport is represented is, you know, when there's some type of controversy around. And speaking of controversy, getting back onto things, there's been a lot of discussions about like what should take place, what shouldn't take place, how this topic should be addressed. And we found this clip. We have Caitlyn Jenner with Pierce Morgan. And honestly, I think this kind of really sums it up. Caitlyn Jenner, Bruce Jenner previously, one of the Olympic athlete, you know, gold medalist, well known, established a career based off of their Olympic performances and how they've done, has transitioned over to be now Caitlyn Jenner. They actually speak out against their thoughts on it and what should be taking place. And I think this kind of speaks volume for someone who is a very proud advocate of the transgender community and the LGBTQ community. But this is what they have to say on Pierce Morgan.
However, Let's turn to the main event of this interview. You're perfectly qualified, Caitlin, to talk about this, because I have a strong view that I support trans rights to fairness and equality, but in issues like sport and women's sport, not to the point where it starts to degrade the fairness and equality for women.
That we talked about
in sport, for example. You've competed as a man hugely successfully, and now you've transitioned to be a woman. What is your view about?
Well, I've been, first of all, you're right. We have to do the best we can here. But I have said from the beginning, and I stand with it, that I don't want biological boys to compete against women and girls in sports. It's just not fair. Now, obviously, over the last 6 months, especially, because of Leah Thomas at the University of Pennsylvania, she had been on the boys' team just a few years earlier.
And look, just to stop this for a second, this is Leah Thomas, okay? This is the competition that they're competing against. Look at this. I understand that there's some freak athletes out there in the women's division and males division, but they have to be every bit at 6'4", 6'5". Look at how much more they tower over them, and they're just their body structure compared to these female competitors.
Here, I do not blame her. She played within the rules, but she dominated.
And if you think about it, right, women have a hard enough time in general nowadays with just trying to be recognized or just being in a fair playing field to begin with. And that's, to put someone it's kind of like you're starting to hold people back from let's call it not letting them be great. I guess that's one way you can put it. You're not letting them be great, because essentially you're throwing them to the wolves, or you're putting them against a brick wall that's just so hard to overcome because of the difference in a lot of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of attributes of everything they've worked so hard for. Can you imagine? You've worked your whole life. You got so many of these young women that worked their whole lives to be athletes. They're busting their ass, all the stuff you don't see. The early mornings they're getting up and they're putting in some work training, off season, going through injuries, going through all of this to compete at the highest or the highest level possible, or at a high level. And then to have someone come in and just completely make it nonchalantly just destroy them in everything they're doing.
Yeah.
That's not fun for anyone. That's not, no one wants to play a game like that. No one wants to that's not really even a competition. You know?
Well, and to that point, I tried to find the quote of it and stuff, but Caitlin one time in an interview said something in the lines of yes, I'm a transgender woman. But even there, she said from the beginning, she does not think biological boys should be competing in female sports. It's not fair. There's a massive difference between the two. And she is literally speaking out against this issue, saying this is not fair. There needs to be things addressed with this, and this should not be continuing to happen. But she's also made a comment too, where it's yes, I'm a transgender woman, but I can also still drive a golf ball 280 yards. There's certain things that she could still do based off of what her previous lifestyle was and her anatomy that she can still do now as a woman. So the next question is where do we go from here? I kind of have some ideas, and you guys in the comments and everything, feel free to share your ideas on what you think we should kind of look towards or do. I think something that could help both parties, and when I say both parties, I'm speaking to transgender athletes and female athletes. I think they should be having their own separate division and be competing against other transgender athletes within those divisions. I'm not saying that you should be able to completely excuse them out of their sports and not give them the right to participate and compete and things like that, because technically the criteria that's being set, like Caitlin said, Leah Thomas played within the rules. She met the criteria of what the NCAA required, did that, went over and was competing in female sports, or women's athletics. So I think The reason I say that if you have different divisions, like you just have a transgender division where these people can go and compete against, two things are going to happen. One, you're not going to have the controversy circle around any type of achievements that have occurred by these transgenders. It's going to be an even playing field. They're going to be competing against people who are doing the same thing as they are. And when you start to separate yourself amongst competition, if anything, you're going to glorify your accomplishments because you can sit there and say, all these people are just like me. I'm the best athlete in here, period. You know? Whereas the other side of it too is now you have women's athletics and stuff getting all their accolades and the competition and stuff that they are holding and competing in and the achievements they are getting, it's like justified. They've worked their ass off. They've trained their whole life, like you said, to get to that moment, to win that title, that championship, set those records. There's nothing like demoralizing to that fact of, yes, I'm going to hold this record now for a long time. Instead, oh, here, 6 months later, a transgender woman comes in and smashes my record, you know? So I think like having separate divisions, they have their own division. I think that's something that would actually be like very beneficial for both parties. What are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a great idea. And I think we were talking about a little bit earlier before we started the podcast, and that's the LGBT community has done such a great job over the years of bringing awareness and inclusivity to everything, to virtually everything, especially nowadays in the United States, and rightfully so. And we hope that continues because it should. This would be an opportunity to have an even playing field for everyone, like you said, to work. You know, everyone is working together to make something better for each other, to make everything fair. So they've done such a great job of doing this over the years, right? Of being part of the community, and we're all just people, like you were saying earlier. So where I'm trying to go with this is, and I lost my train of thought here. 1 second.
Talk about the support from the communities and
Yeah. So if they made their own division in sports and leagues, like that's gonna blow up quick.
yeah, oh, I
Like
think so.
everything else, like it wouldn't be taking away anything. I guess what I was trying to say is it's not gonna take away anything from trans athletes wanting to compete. It give them the opportunity to compete, which is what sports is about and what everybody should have the opportunity to do. And also, it would even the playing field for everyone. There's not going to be no doubt in anyone's mind, like I said, who the best athlete is. Because look, let's be honest. Let's be very realistic. Trans athletes are people. They're intelligent people, especially if they can compete at that level, right? They're intelligent people. So when you've been competing in men's sports at one point, and then you decide that you're going to go and compete in women's sports as a competitor, as an intelligent person, you have to you have to figure that some of these athletes are telling themselves they know, okay, they know that for a fact they're stronger, they know for a fact they're faster, and they know for a fact they're better, or they wouldn't even be competing, because that's part of competing and being an athlete, is that you're trying to be the best, the strongest, and the fastest, all those things. So it takes away from wondering, is this person genuinely trying to compete, or are they just taking advantage and exploiting the system to say, well, you know what, I'm gonna go and compete. I didn't do, like you said, I didn't do so well competing against men. Let me try and go competing against girls. And that's not what sports is about. It's not about, well, I couldn't really play against these. I'm not really good playing against these people. That's like me being in my age group and saying, you know what? I'm not really good at playing football in high school against 15 and 16 and 17-year-olds. I'm going to go play with like 11 and 12-year-olds. No,
I'm going to go compete against middle schoolers.
You can't do that. Like, you don't do that. That's not something that you would do. That's not integrity, having integrity, you know?
And that's what I was getting at with, like, if they had their own division, then like the success and everything that they are earning, it's like, it's truly, they're earning that, you know, they are earning that respect. They are earning that recognition within there, because like the whole thing going back to Fallon Fox was they had 2 professional fights, and a lot of people were like, holy crap, who is this like fighter? Where they've come from? And then it came out that they used to be a male, and they have transitioned to be a woman, and they're competing in women athletics. And there were some people who gave, like Joe Rogan, I think he talked about it on his podcast, there are so many people who gave him like so much grief on it, because it then came out that like someone was saying, no, they're still a woman, like even if they were a man and they're now a woman, like they're still a woman. And this person was like, no, like they actually like used to be a biological male. They were married before with their wife, got their wife pregnant, they have a child, like they were a man, and he got like a bunch of slap for that. But the whole issue is like it went from being holy crap, who is this female fighter that is like knocking people out crazy fast, to all of a sudden it's, oh, they used to be a male or a transgender woman. It's like they should not be competing in the sport. They're gonna get somebody killed. Like it completely did a flip on them, and it was like all of their success and stuff that they had was instantly taken away. And to that point, since then, Fallon Fox actually did get beat by a female fighter for the title. Yeah. She actually lost to a female fighter for the title. And I'm trying to find the clip, or I tried to find the clip of it because I came across the article, but it was also one of those things where it's like, dude, like they actually kind of put like a beating on her. And some of the stuff around it was, I think Fallon Fox's corner was upset because the ref kind of let the female fighter get about 10 seconds worth of extra punches in there and stuff, from what I saw in the article. But anyways, so like they actually did lose to a female fighter within their own sport. But you know, that's something I think that could actually help both parties, because at the end of the day too, like these transgender athletes, they're competing as well. Like they're training, they're putting in the time, they're putting in the effort, and like when you achieve what you achieve, you don't want any questions around what you've done, you know.
And I think that's why it would be great to have you know, a trans athlete division for all sports, because like you said, there would be nothing to take, like nothing negative to take away from the accomplishments. It would all be their own individual athletes or team or whatever's accomplishments. It would be an earned celebration, and it should be celebrated just like every other athlete is. I mean, also, you know, to go back to what I was mentioning earlier about taking advantage, it prevents somebody, because like I said, we're all intelligent. Athletes are intelligent, and you got to bet that some of them know what they're doing in a how should I say, like in a way to basically cheat or take advantage, right? Having that kind of division for every sport would prevent one from people taking advantage of those kind of situations, right? And also give the opportunity to other people who are just wholeheartedly, without trying to take advantage, they're just trying to play sports, right? They're just trying to compete and have fun. That also gives them the opportunity to do that without having to worry about having to meet the same criterias, about basically everybody has, like we've been saying, everybody has a fair opportunity, a fair playing field, with the, as well as with the equality to have everybody play, because that is exactly what sports is supposed to be. Like I said earlier, you know,
it's sportsmanship. It's a respect for the game and sportsmanship.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that everybody should have the opportunity to participate in and be a part.
Yeah, there's been times, man, and I'm sure you've gone through it too, there's been times in games where like you and the person that you're competing against, if it's a team-based sport and you're going against another team, like you guys are like going after each other, you're kicking the crap out of each other. You're probably saying stuff. I know I said stuff. I tried to play some mental warfare and stuff against my opponent, but then when the final whistle blew and that scoreboard went off and the clock hit 0, I walked across the field, I shook their hands, and I always stopped, especially in football. I stopped against the guy I was going up against, and I talked to him for about 5-10 seconds. I said, hey man, hell of a game, you know, you got like, you're one hell of a like dude to block, you got great speed off the edge, whatever it was. I gave him like a compliment. I respected them, wished them well for the rest of the season and stuff. And I always wanted them to stay safe. Like, hey man, stay healthy, stay safe. You know, good luck the rest of the way. Keep working on that move, man. Like, it got me several times, you know. And like, and the thing is the stuff that's going on in the game afterwards, like it was all done. It was sportsmanship, and they're like, yeah, sorry. Like one guy said, yeah, man, sorry I said this to you. I was like, bro, I've been called worse. Don't worry about it, you know. Like, but it's just a thing of, I don't know, like we're fighting for equality, we're fighting for fairness, and there's obviously still some things that we are trying to be open to and be supportive of, but they're still not fair, you know.
Yeah.
And you have, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. I was just gonna say, like, I know, like when you have it can be easy to lose sight of those kind of things, like what's fair and what's equal for everyone, when we're trying to when you try to make things equal for everyone. I think sometimes we get so into who should be able to do what, when, and where, or giving everyone the same opportunity, that sometimes we lose track of of what really is fair, or what kind of things have been set in place specifically so things stay that way. You know, if you've changed too many things,
Yeah.
it completely throws everything off. There's nothing wrong with change, but when you change certain things or too many things, it can completely destroy what's already been constructed, right?
Yep.
And that's basically what we're trying to get at with sports and sportsmanship, is making sure that as we are allowing, or as we should, as we start to allow or give opportunity to everyone to play, to compete, as we give everyone an opportunity to compete, we have to make sure there's certain rules and boundaries that stay in place so that it's fair for everyone, so that it's fun for everyone, so that whoever's working the hardest in the room, so the way it's supposed to be is that whoever's the hardest working, whoever puts most of the time in the gym, obviously all that stuff, those are supposed to be the athletes that come out on top. Those are supposed to be the people that earn and get their victories, or whatever their accomplishments, and be celebrated for it. And not be in a situation where I've been doing this all my life and working so hard to get here, and someone just comes and walks in here a couple months ago, and it's like I'm nothing. I did nothing. Everything is for nothing. That's not how sports should be for anybody, and that's not how it should be for anyone. If you're gonna lose to somebody, in any kind of competition, you should be able to lose outright. You should be able to lose fair and square. And I think that's the main thing, is that if you're gonna lose, you lose fair and square. If you win fair and square. It has to be fair, because there's nothing like feeling like you've been cheated out of something. There's no one likes to be cheated out of anything, and that's everyone and anyone.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's what it comes down to, is making sure that we're keeping everything fair and level for everyone. And I think that's why we are pretty big about having a trans athlete division for all sports, instead of trying to go through this system of qualifying different transitions to different we could just make it more uniform for
Absolutely.
everyone, in a way that works for everyone, the same way that we've done it traditionally, right?
Yeah.
It would make a lot of sense to me, personally. I think it make a lot of sense, and I think it also give a lot more opportunity for trans athletes to compete, to be in the sport that they want to be in, and compete in the competitions that they want to compete in, you know.
So that's gonna wrap it up for us on this one here. Next week we're gonna be talking about the NBA Finals. We're gonna also be talking about the NHL Stanley Cup, and we're gonna be going over the current state of coaching and athletes. We've been seeing a lot of things at a professional level when it comes to coaches, and how some of our like professional athletes have been handling themselves off the field. We've also kind of seen some things in regards to like athletes speaking out against their coaches, because there's definitely been a transition of how coaching styles used to be when we grew up and what you saw to how it is now. So we're going to kind of dive into that a little bit, get your all's perspective on it. Y'all see it too. But be sure to hit that subscribe button. Leave us some comments down below on what you guys think would actually be beneficial for the integrity of sports and transgender athletes competing in sports, and how we can kind of disrupt some of this controversy and give everybody like an equal opportunity and try to create the fairest playing field possible. Once again, I'm Pat. This is little Jacob. We are Fourth Quarter Fanatics. Y'all take care of yourselves. Let's continue to take care of each other, and let's get after it. Peace.
There's guys.